So, what if imagination was basically a crime? I mean, really think about that. That's the world Charles Dickens throws us into in his 1854 novel, Hard Times. And let me tell you, it's not just some dusty old classic. It is a fiery critique of an age that tried to reshape humanity into the image of a machine. Right here, this single line. This is the key to the whole book. It's spoken by the character Thomas Gradgrind, and it's everything a command, a philosophy, and honestly, a huge warning. It sets up the central battle of the entire story a world that worships only what it can measure versus the unmeasurable power of human feeling and, imagination. Okay, so to really get what's going on in Gradgrind's head, you have to picture mid 19th century England. This was a time of just explosive change, right? It's all about the factory, the steam engine, and with this whole industrial boom came a totally new way of thinking, a philosophy that prized logic, efficiency, and above all else, cold, hard facts. And that philosophy? It has a name utilitarianism. The idea behind it was, well, kind of brutal and simple. If you can't measure it, it just doesn't matter. The goal was supposed to be the greatest good for the greatest number of people, but Dickens saw this massive, fatal flaw. What happens to the human soul, to creativity, to love, in a system that literally has no way to calculate their value? And this way of thinking didn't just stay in philosophical books. Oh no, it marched right into the classroom. Education got completely retooled with one single purpose to churn out an obedient, compliant workforce. Kids weren't being taught how to think, they were being programmed with facts, their minds literally being shaped to fit the needs of the factory floor. So, what does a society built entirely on this facts only principle actually look like? Well, Dickens gives us a chilling answer in the fictional city of Coketown, which, let's be real, felt all too real for the time. This is where that abstract philosophy smashes into the harsh reality of brick and smoke and human lives. The way Dickens describes this place is just, wow, it's visceral. He's not just describing a town, he is painting a picture of a living nightmare. Interminable serpents of smoke, a river that's purple with ill-smelling dye. This isn't some shiny city of progress. It's a polluted, twisted landscape where even nature has been corrupted by industry. And that pollution, it wasn't just in the air and the water, it seeped right into the human spirit. The dreary uniformity of the town was a mirror for its people. You see, in a world obsessed with mass production, individuality is just an inconvenience. Human beings were getting reduced to this faceless, anonymous mob.
And the ultimate price of this whole philosophy is laid bare in one absolutely devastating moment. This cry for help comes from Louisa, Thomas Gradgrind's own daughter, the so-called perfect product of his fact-based education. But here, she just breaks. Her emotional collapse is the most powerful takedown of his entire system. He gave her every fact in the world, but he completely starved her soul, leaving her utterly empty inside.
But Dickens, he doesn't just leave us in the despair of Coketown. He shows us a vibrant, chaotic, wonderful alternative. We step out of that gray, uniform world and into the world of the circus, a powerful answer to everything the factory stands for. I mean, the circus is the polar opposite of Coketown in every way. It's messy, it's emotional, people work together, and it's just bursting with wonder. It's a sanctuary for what Dickens calls fancy, which is really just imagination, creativity, feeling, all the things Gradgrind's system is designed to crush. It represents a totally different and you could argue a more authentic way of being human. And when you put their values side by side like this, the conflict is just impossible to ignore. On one side, you have the cold, hard math of Coketown, facts, profit, uniformity. And on the other, you have the beating heart of the circus, imagination, fraternity, individuality. What Dickens is really asking us is, which of these two worlds actually values a human life? The human face of the circus's values is this amazing character, Sissy Jupe. She can't give you a textbook definition of a horse, but she knows what it feels like to care for one. Her emotional intelligence and her simple goodness just completely short-circuit Gradgrind's rigid system. She doesn't argue with it, she just punctures its logic by existing. It's brilliant. Now, this powerful clash of ideas wasn't just a thing inside the novel. It sparked a very real debate among literary critics, a debate that's been raging for over 150 years. So how have people argued over the legacy of Hard Times? The whole critical fight really boils down to this one question. Is this book a masterful piece of literature with all these complex themes? Or is it more like a thinly veiled lecture, a social pamphlet, where the message just kind of bulldozes the art? Let's dig into the two sides of that argument. So on one side, you've got this really influential critic, F.R. Leavis. He basically argued that the novel was too on the nose, too preachy. For him, characters like Gradgrind weren't complex human beings. They were just simple caricatures, basically puppets for Dickens's argument. So in his view, the art really took a backseat to the sermon. But then, on the other side of the ring, you have the critic J.B. Priestley, and he saw the novel's bluntness as its greatest strength. He argued it was a powerful and, frankly, a necessary attack on industrial capitalism. For Priestley, the book's value wasn't just in its literary style, but in its deep, genuine empathy for the real human beings being crushed by the system. So you really have two totally different ways of looking at it. Leavis judged the book on its artistic merit, and for him, it fell short. Priestley judged it on its social conscience and found it to be essential. It just goes to show you how the exact same work can be seen as either an artistic failure or a moral triumph, and it all depends on what you value most. Okay, so after all that analysis and all that debate, we're left with the most important question of all. Why are we still talking about this book today? How on earth does a story about the Steam Age have anything to say to us now? And that's a fair question, right? I mean, the world of Coketown, with its smokestacks and steam engines, it seems so far away. But is it, really? The core conflict of this novel, facts versus fancy, is, I would argue, more relevant than it's ever been. And this is exactly why it still matters. Just think about our world today, our obsession with big data, with metrics, with trying to standardize everything from how our kids learn to how we do our jobs. Hard times is a huge warning about what gets lost when we try to measure everything. It makes us ask about the real human cost of progress, and it reminds us that imagination, empathy, creativity, all those values of the circus, they aren't just nice-to-haves. They're absolutely essential. And so we end up right back where we started, with Louisa Gradgrind's desperate question. At the end of the day, Dickens's novel is a timeless warning. In our relentless chase for facts, for data, for efficiency, we have to remember to ask ourselves about those unmeasurable but completely essential graces of the soul.